Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. We start first and foremost by praising the King, the Master, the Sustainer, the Creator of the seven heavens and the earth. And we send peace and blessings upon our beloved Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the greatest prophet of them all. The topic of tonight was the reality of dunya. You know, my brothers, many of you, I'm sure you've either heard my talk on YouTube or you've seen it, or you know. But the reminder benefits the believer, and I wanted to start off the night with a very, very famous story. I've mentioned it to you guys before, I'm sure I have. It's very famous on YouTube. I believe Yusuf Estes made it very, very big lately. Now the story within itself, the asl of the story is that it's an Israeliyat. Yani it's the stories from the people of Banu Israel. And as far as the hukm on these stories is, the Prophet of Allah, he says, mention their stories. We don't say they're true and we don't say they're false. So we don't derive any halal, haram. We simply take the benefit, you know, from the moral of the story. But the story within itself, my brothers and sisters, and you know, as I share it, there's a couple of things I need to clear before I start, because I know some people get upset when I mention prophets, and I use language that is the boys. You know, I speak the language of the area. And some people feel that that's somewhat disrespectful, that you should better the language. And wallahi, my intention is because I know when I use that language, people understand it better. So let me clear this up with any, you know, I'm not doing it to disrespect, you know, the story in any way, shape or form. But wallahi, I do it so that the people, especially the younger boys, can really grasp the message. So that being cleared, I want you to live the story, you know. I really want the brothers and the sisters, don't be entertained by the story. Don't go, oh wow, look what happened to this guy in the story. I want you to imagine you're that person. Because wallahi, in truth, every person in this room has walked the shoes of this guy at one stage or another in his life. Anyway, so the story has it that in the time of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, in the time of Jesus, he was traveling with some of his companions, traveling with some of the boys. So then they reached an area, bro, and they had the munchies. So they got hungry. That's what I meant, yani, words like this, yeah? So they had the munchies. So the boys got hungry. They get to the, you know, so they get to a particular area. And Jesus, alayhi salatu wasalam, he collected whatever money they had. They collected whatever money they had. After collecting the money, he chose one of the companions. He says to him, look, you take this money, go into the town and buy us some food. We're hungry. So the man says, yeah, all right, that's no problems. Takes the money, goes into the town. When he goes into the town, he realizes that all the money could buy was what? 3 loaves of bread. That's all he could buy. Now I want to stop here because every one of us has been at this point in his life. The man looks at it and says, bro, I've only got 3 loaves of bread. And there must have been about 10 blokes back there waiting to eat. And if they're lebos, he had no chance whatsoever, bro. So he's looking at the bread, he's thinking, bro, if I take this back, how much am I going to possibly eat? So what does he do? He eats one then and there. He eats one, he polishes it off, and goes back to Jesus with only 2 loaves of bread. When he goes back to Jesus and he gives him the 2 loaves of bread, Jesus looks at the bread, alayhi salatu wasalam, looks at the man and he says to him, who ate the 3rd loaf? Shuha, who ate the 3rd loaf? The man's buckling, he's thinking, what the hell? He's thinking, when I ate the 3rd one, I was alone, there was no one there. So now Jesus is asking about the 3rd, so what does he do? He says, bro, Eid al-Quran, I only bought 2. What did he say? He says, bro, wallahi, he says, I only bought 2. So Jesus doesn't argue with the man, you know. They carry on their journey. Then they reach a destination. The companions that were successful in hunting a deer, they hunted the deer, they killed it, they cooked it, they ate it, until there was nothing left, bones, just a carcass. And then Jesus calls the man over. He sits him down, he says to him, look. And then by the will of Allah Azza wa Jalla, a miracle through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Jesus gives life to the animal in front of the man's very eyes. Imagine, it was just bones, and it comes back to life in front of their eyes and it runs away. So Jesus says to the man, I'm asking you by the one that gave life to this animal. Bro, who ate that 3rd loaf of bread, man? If the guy wasn't feeling pressure before, now he's thinking, Ya Allah, He's thinking, cuz, I swear I only bought 2. You know, sometimes my brothers, we make a mistake in life, and you could have corrected it when you first made the mistake. But because of a lie, because we were put into a corner, we make the situation worse on ourselves. The man could have, back then, he could have said to him, look, wallah, I got hungry, cuz, and and I was afraid if I bring the food, there's going to be nothing left. Now, look how deep he's falling. He's seen, he knows very well, bro. The animal came to life in front of him. Anyway, Jesus doesn't argue with the man, they continue on. They eventually reach a river. The river was over flooded. There was no boats to cross the river, and they had to get to the other side. So Jesus, Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, he gathers the companions, and by the will of Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows them to walk on the surface of the water. All of them, imagine all of them, as a group. They walk on the surface of the water, and then they cross the river and get to the other side. And then Jesus calls the man over. He says to him, I'm asking you by the one that allowed us to walk on the water, man. Who ate that 3rd loaf of bread? Now the man's feeling the heat, right? He says, honestly, there was only 2. They carried on until they reached their final destination. Jesus calls the man over. They sit down on the floor. And Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, he gathers together 3 piles of dirt. Imagine you're this man. He puts together 3 piles of dirt. He sits the brother down. And by the will of Allah Azza wa Jal, he turns the dirt into gold. Then he says to the man, he says, look, I tell you what. He says, 1 pile is for you. 1 pile is for me. And the 3rd is for the one that ate that 3rd loaf of bread. The guy, but eat al-Quran, I ate the bread. He sees the 3rd loaf. He says, I ate the bread. Allahu Akbar, now there's papers involved, there's gold. The guy's eyes, bala Jesus, bala ma ba'arif shu, bala, Allahu Akbar, there's gold. So the man, when he sees dunya, he sees gold, he says, bro, I ate the 3rd loaf. Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, look, for you, you have all 3 piles, but you can't join us anymore, man. What does the man say? He says, go, bro, go, look at this fortune that I now have, man. You know, my brothers, let me stop here for a sec, yeah? How many of us, wallahi, we've sold our deen for a small price, man? Yes, we are walking with prophets, and yes, prophets are sitting us down and telling us, yes, I know. But how many of us, for a small price in this world, for a small price, we sold our deen? So now the man's kicking back, bro. He's looking at all this dahab, he's looking at all this money. He's thinking, Allahu Akbar, what do I buy first, bro? Do I buy the C63 first? Is it he didn't know what he's going to buy first. So he's sitting there, he's looking at the gold, he's admiring it. Isa and his companions take off. Shortly after, 3 thieves come by. When they see the man and 3 piles of gold, the maths is pretty straightforward, bro. First thing they did is they knocked him off straight away. They killed the man. 3 thieves, 3 piles of gold, halawa. But they too were hungry, man. So one of them says, look, I'll take some money, I'll go to the town, I'll buy some food, we'll have a feed, and then everyone takes his pile of gold and we call it a day. Beautiful, man. He goes to the town, my brothers, and on the way he starts thinking to himself, you know. He's thinking, how can I get that money, man? And while he's over there buying the food, the 2 that stayed behind are thinking, how can we take his money? So they planned and plotted, and he planned and plotted. They said, when he returns, we'll kill him. They said, what? When he returns, we'll kill him. And we'll split his share in half. When the man reaches the town, he buys the food, he says, bro, 100% they're going to do something to me. So what does he do? He poisons their food. He comes back with the food. Before he could do anything, they killed him straight away. As he knew, as he planned. Wallah, they sat down, they had a feed, and little did they know the food was poisoned. Wallahi, shortly after they also died. Now Isa alayhi salatu wasalam and his companions, they're walking back. They seen their former companion. the 3 thieves, and the 3 piles of gold sitting there untouched. So Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, he looks over to his companions and he says to them, this is hayat ad-dunya. He says, this is the life of this world, and this is what it does for the one who runs after it, man. That's dunya, my brothers and sisters. Wallahi, you can run and gather and collect as much as you want. You're leaving everything behind. You know what? Wallahi, you're leaving everything behind. And my brothers, honestly, how many of us, we've sold our deen for a very small price? And some of you think, nah, cuz me, I'm a soldier. I'm a soldier. Wallahi, my brothers, the tricks of shaitan are far greater than us. When I was in the UK, one of the mashayikh there, he was sharing his story with us. And I heard it personally, yani. It's a very famous story. Just to give you an example, one of the mashayikh there, he says, I was hired by one of the masajid as an imam. He says, I was hired as an imam by one of the mosques. He says, and I was new to the area. And really, this is a true story, so I really want you to really live it out, yeah? He says, I was the imam, and I used to take the bus from my house to the town, to that area, and then I would walk to the masjid. It wasn't far from there. And he says, because I was the imam, when I would go to the masjid, he went in his abaya and the amama and the whole shebang. He says, so I would take this bus. He says, one day I jumped on the bus and it was a new bus driver, so it wasn't someone that he had seen. He says, I jumped on the bus, I paid him for my fare, and he gave me the change. He says, when he gave me the change, I didn't really look at what he gave me until I went back to the back of the bus, I sat down. He says, when I sat down, I looked at the money and I realized he gave me 20 pence. In the UK, 20 pence, we're talking nothing, but cents. Like 10 cents at most. He says, so I sat there and I said, man, the guy gave me more. He said, and then the conversation started happening in my head. And honestly, how many times have you been in this position? He's thinking, you know what? It's 20 pence, it's nothing, bro, don't worry about it. Madbahdil halak, you know what I mean? Don't embarrass yourself. They're a big company anyway, bro, and really, what's 20 cents gonna do, eh? If he was a level 100%, he would have said, like, ruh, bro, they're all dogs anyway, bro, they're all kuffar, they're all going to hell, like, rip them. So the man's sitting there and he's thinking, bro, it's 20 cents, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I? He says, and wallahi, for the whole trip, this is the conversation that's happening. He says, it wasn't about the money, it was just... And then the sheikh was saying, when I got to my bus stop, he said, when I got to my destination, he said, I got off my chair, I'm walking down the bus, I'm walking to the front door. He says, wallahi, and I'm still saying to myself, do I give it, don't I give it? He says, and then as soon as I got to the bus driver, he said, I don't know what went into me, man. He said, when I turned over to the bus driver, I said to him, look, man, you gave me 20 extra. He goes, no, I didn't give you 20 extra. He goes, I gave it to you intentionally. He said, why did you give it to me intentionally? He goes, well, for 3 years I've been looking into Islam. And he said, when I came and I seen you dressed the way you were dressed, I knew that you were an imam. He said, so today I was going to make my decision. If you were honest, I was going to embrace Islam. But if you kept that money, he said, I knew that you were liars like everyone else lies. So now the sheikh is speaking about himself. He says, I gave him the money. He says, I got off the bus. He says, when the bus drove off, he says, I started crying. I said to him, why? Because the man accepted Islam, or he was about to accept Islam. He gets me, la wallahi la. I said to him, why? He said to me, I almost sold my deen for 20 cents, bro. He said, I almost sold Islam. I sold the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal for 20 cents. Now you're thinking, bro, I would never do it. But how many of us, honestly, how many of us have sent our wives to Centrelink? Sent your wife to Centrelink in a scarf or jilbab and even taray niqab. She's got 3 kids in a pram, 1 on her hand, 1 in her stomach, and she's walking in signing papers saying, I'm a single mother. Why? Because you get a couple of dollars at the end of the week, bro. So don't tell me, oh, you know what, well, I'll never do it. Wallahi, because shaitan comes in different ways, man. How many of us heard for a little lie? Little lie, the brother's buying a C63, goes to the RTA, yeah bro, I bought it for 6 grand, man. Why? Because he pays a little bit less stamp duty. Muslim with a bead, signing on paper, lying. Why? To save a couple of bucks. He says, I almost sold my deen, bro, for 20 cents. That's dunya, man. That's dunya. What is this world? Wallahi, my brothers and sisters, what is this world in reality? In reality, malish, let me be straight out with you, man. Am I allowed to speak Quran? Am I allowed to speak Quran? I won't tell you the opinion of some sheikh. He can argue and tell me, cuz, who's the sheikh? What's his asl? What's his name? Forget it. Quran. Can I speak Quran? Allah Azza wa Jal says about dunya. And He created dunya. So He knows it better than you, better than me, better than anyone. He says, وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. You know what one of the opinion is about mata' al-ghurur? You know what Allah Azza wa Jal is saying this world is? Mata' al-ghurur, my brothers, with all due respect to the sisters that are here. Mata' al-ghurur is a rag the women used to use as a tampon. And it's not just a rag. Allah Azza wa Jal isn't saying it's a rag. He's saying it's a used rag. Yani it's already got blood on it and it's of no benefit to anyone. This is dunya. Not my words, Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying. And He created it, so He knows it for its reality. He says, this is this dunya. This is what you're running after. This is what every one of us, deep down in his heart, is dying for, waking up for, working 12, 13, 14 hours for, bro. This, for a used tampon, bro. And I wish it's that, bro. We're punching on now because of it. We're going to war on the streets now. Muslims are bluntly killing Muslims. Why? For used tampon. We've sold our deen. Wallahi, we've sold our deen. Go to any masjid you like any masjid for a Fajr prayer. And see how many people choose Allah over dunya. Go! I'm not going to tell you Allah. Go, your own masjid, choose the own masjid you want. Go there for Jum'ah. Then go there the next morning for Fajr. And then the same crowd. You know what's funny? You tell, Wallahi, brother, deen or dunya? Astaghfirullah, cuz, what are you calling me a kafir, bro? Deen, brother, deen. Allah comes first in my life. Allahu Akbar, beautiful. You know, my brothers, Allah Azza wa Jal, He's not looking for words. If it's words, we're all awliya here. If it's words, forget it. I'm the biggest flamja on the face of the planet, bro. I'm on levels. But Allah's not looking for words. What's Allah looking for? Action. Because actions, my brothers, they speak far louder than words. Far louder than words. The same ummah that tells you, brother, I believe in Allah. And I believe that Allah is a Razzaq. And I believe it's Allah who gives and takes dunya. These same people, for Salat al-Fajr, everyone is but then at 6:30 in the morning, he's up on his feet, buying a za'atar manushi with a V and a cigarette, going to work. I'm not saying this is haram, but seriously, what have you chosen, deen or dunya? The same ummah that says to me, nah brother, it's Allah, 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 for Fajr is asleep. But then when he comes to work, wallahi, if his boss tells him, cuz you gotta be at 3 in the morning, like tikram ayunak, bro. What have we chosen, man? What have we chosen? So it's not about, you ask yourself, what have I really chosen? Have I chosen deen or have I chosen dunya? What has gotten the better of me? Rasulullah, he knew the reality of this dunya, man. Sometimes people think that, being a Muslim means you have to be a hater for dunya. No. The Prophet of Allah didn't come to tell us to hate dunya, no. He came to expose dunya to its reality. He came to show you how to take the best from dunya and leave the rest of it behind. He came to teach us. And he says in the hadith, He says, الدنيا ملعونة وملعون ما فيها. He says, this world is cursed. There's no good in this world, trust me. He says, and whatever in it is cursed, except what? He says, except the remembrance of Allah, more or less. He says, except the remembrance of Allah, or seeking knowledge or teaching, or anything around this. What's this world, my brothers, really? Wallahi, my brothers, you take nothing with you. My sisters, you take nothing with you. This world is temporary. It's temporary. Today you're here, tomorrow you're gone. That's the truth. What did one of the kings of the past, he says to his men, he says, when you bury me and stick my hands out of the grave. He says, bury me naked and stick my hands out of the grave. So his men were amazed. And they said, Cuz, we understand that you want to go naked, alright. But why stick your hands out of the grave? He says, let it be known that this king, when he left dunya, he left empty-handed. He took nothing with him, bro. My brothers, wallahi, all your problems and all your dramas and whatever you're going through, it's going to finish as soon as your time in this dunya finishes, man. Harun al-Rashid, one of the great khulafa of this ummah, one of the great leaders centuries ago, yeah? I think he conquered almost one third of the world was under his empire. And then one of the scholars that he was sitting with, he says, look at what we've accomplished. He's telling the scholar, look at what we've accomplished as far as dunya is concerned. So the scholar says to him, he says to him, bro, do you know what the equivalent of your accomplishment, everything you own? He says, do you know what it is in reality? He says, no, what? He says, no, I'll tell you what it is. He says to me, if I invited you over, look at Malish, it's a bit deep, yeah? But think about it. The scholar says to me, look, if I invited you over to my house and I fed you a lot of salty food and you became very thirsty after, very thirsty, and there was no water anyway. He says, and I possess the only cup of water. He says to him, what would you pay for the cup of water? He goes, bro, I'll give you half my kingdom. For a cup of water. He says to him, Taib, what if I give you the water and then you had to go toilet to do a number one and you're busting and you couldn't go anywhere and you're really busting. He says, and I was the only one that had the means to allow you to relieve yourself. He says, what would you pay for you to relieve yourself? He says, bro,